Hello everyone. Today I, Mrs. Garima Bhandari, is here with new chapter of class 12th history, thinkers, beliefs and building. The sources to reconstruct cultural developments of this period. Buddhist, Jain and Brahmical texts written in various languages in this period. Large and impressive materials remain including monuments and inscription. Role of Begums in preserving the stupa at Sanchi. 19th century, Europeans like the French and the English sought Shahjahan Begum's permission to take away the eastern gateway, which was the best preserved to be displayed in museum in France and England, but she refused. The rulers of Bhopal, Shah Jahan Begum and Sultan Jahan Begum, provided money for the preservation of the ancient site. This is why John Marshall dedicated his important volumes on Sanchi to Sultan Jahan. She funded the museum that was built there as well as the guest house where John Marshall lived. She also funded the publication of the volumes written by John Marshall. The stupa complex has survived due to the wise decisions of Begums and escaped from the eye of railway contractors, builders, and those looked for finds to carry away to the Museum of Europe. The mid first millennium BC is often regarded as a turning point in world history. This period saw the emergence of thinkers such as Zarathustra in Iran, Kongzi in China, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle in Greece, and Mahavir and Gautam Buddha in India. They tried to understand the mysteries of existence and the relationship between human beings and the cosmic orders. This was also the time when new kingdoms and cities were developing all over the world. This was also the time when social and economic life was changing in a variety of ways in the Ganga Valley. The sacrificial tradition, that means Vedic sacrifices. The early Vedic traditions was one of the pre-existing traditions of thought. The Rig Veda consists of hymns in praise of variety of deities, especially Agni, Indra and Som. Many of these hymns were chanted when sacrifices were performed, where people prayed for cattle, sons, good health, long life, etc. At first, sacrifices were performed collectively. Later, some sacrifices were performed by the head of the family for the well-being of the domestic unit. More elaborate sacrifices such as the Rajasuya and Ashwamedh were performed by chiefs and kings who depended on Brahmins priests to conduct these rituals. Debate and discussion. There were as many as 64 sects or school of thought. Lively discussions and debate took place between the teachers of these schools of thought. Teachers like Buddha and Mahavir traveled from place to place trying to convince one another as well as lay persons about the validity of their philosophy or the way they understood the world. Debate took place in the Kutagarashala, a hut with a pointed roof, in a grove where travelling mendicants halted. If a philosopher succeeded in convincing one of his rivals, the followers of the latter also became his disciples. So, support for any particular sect could grow and shrink over time. Many of these teachers, including Mahavir and the Buddha, questioned the authority of the Vedas. Then, fatalist and materialist. Fatalist or Ajivikas those who believe that everything is predetermined. Materialist or lokayatas, those who believe that everything is not predetermined. Fatalist teachers named Makhali Gosala says that the wise and the fool cannot come out of karma. It can neither be lessened nor increased. Materialist teachers Ajita Kesakambalin says that a human being is made up of four elements. When he dies, the earthy in him return of the earth, the fruit to water, the heat to fire, the windy to air, and his senses pass into space. They do not survive after death. Then the message of Mahavir or philosophy of Jainism. The important ideas of Jainism is the entire world is animated. Even stone, rocks, and water have life. Non-injury to living being, especially to human, animals, plants, and insects, is central to Jainism. In fact, the principle of ahimsa, emphasized within Jainism, has left its mark on Indian thinkers. According to Jaina teaching, the cycle of birth and rebirth is shaped through karma. Asceticism and penance are required to free oneself from the cycle of karma. This can be achieved only by renouncing the world. Jain monks and nuns took 5 vows such as abstain from killing, to abstain from stealing, to abstain from lying, to observe celibacy, to abstain from possessing property. Now, how the Jainism spread. The teaching of Mahavira was recorded by his disciples. These were often in the form of stories which could appeal to ordinary people. Jain scholars produced a wealth of literature in a variety of languages such as Prakrit, Sanskrit, and Tamil. For many centuries, manuscripts of these texts were carefully preserved in libraries attached to Jain temples. Gradually, Jainism spread to many parts of India such as Maharashtra, Karnataka, and Tamil Nadu. Some of the earliest stone sculptures associated with Jainism were produced by devotees of the Jain Tirthankars. Now, the Buddha and the quest for enlightenment. Buddhism grew rapidly both during the lifetime of the Buddha and after his death, as it appealed to many people who, dissatisfied with existing religious practices, Buddha's message, metta, that means fellow feeling, and karuna, compassion, that means compassion, spread across the subcontinent and beyond Central Asia, China, Korea, Japan, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, and Indonesia. Buddha's teaching have been reconstructed by carefully editing, translating, and analyzing the Buddhist texts. Historians have also tried to reconstruct detail of his life from hagiographies. Hagiographies is a biography of a saint or a religious leaders. Many of these were written down at least a century after the death of the Buddha in an attempt to preserve memories of the great teacher. According to the tradition, Siddhartha was the son of a chief of the Sakya clan. He had a sheltered upbringing within the palace, avoiding the harsh reality of life. One day, he persuaded his charioteer to take him into the city. His first journey into the world outside was traumatic. He was deeply anguished when he saw an old man, a sick man, and a dead body. He realized in that moment that the decay and destruction of the human body was inevitable. He also saw a homeless mendicant who had come to terms with old age and disease. Soon after, he left the palace and set out in search of his own truth. Siddhartha explored several paths, including body mortification, which led him to a situation of near death. He meditated for several days and finally attained enlightenment. After this, he came to be known as the Buddha or Enlightened One. The teaching of the Buddha. According to the Buddhist philosophy, the world is transient, anicca, that means anicca, and constantly changing. It is also soulless, ananta, as there is nothing permanent or eternal in it. Within this transient world, sorrow, that means dukh, is intrinsic to human existence. By following the path of moderation between severe penance and self-indulgence, that human being can come out of these worldly trouble. The Buddha regarded the social world as the creation of human rather than of divine origin. Therefore, he advised kings and Grahapatis to be humane and ethical toward common people. Individual efforts were expected to transform social relations. The Buddha emphasized individual agency and righteous actions as the mean to escape from the cycle of rebirth and attain self realization. That's all for today. We'll continue this chapter in our next video. Thank you.